All right, guys, what is going on today? We're going to be here talking about the 4 things eating your day that really aren't actually your job and aren't moving the business forward. And what I want us to think about is we're going to use this analogy as kind of our baseline for this episode. And I always kind of use the military analogy of, okay, we're going to be leading a team or a group of soldiers through a forest. All right. So when we started doing land navigation in the military, we had these different concepts that you would use. But generally, the rule of thumb is if you don't have guidance, compass, direction, and distance, then you're going to have a really tough time finding a fixed point. And when we think about this as a business owner, what I think people start with is they start trekking through this forest and they're trying to get somewhere. So let's say we're trying to build a business. Our first thing is like we want to replace our old income, right? So we were working a job before we started a business. I want to replace my old business income. That's our first place to get to. Then our next one might be to get to, more profitability so that we can buy more equipment and we can start to expand and grow. Then our next spot might be we want to get to $1 million a year revenue, then $10 million a year revenue, then $20 million a year revenue. And we just keep kind of moving those goalposts. And that's kind of the life of business, right? Well, as you start in that journey, you start kind of going through this forest, people start to follow you. You start to hire employees. You start to hire business partners or consultants or other companies to come in, and you tack those things onto your business and they start trailing behind you. Now, as they're trailing behind you, they can only follow you. They are not going to know where to go if you don't know where to go. So what we think about is as we get going, the best possible thing for us is every now and again to get into a helicopter, get up above the forest, look down at our team and where everybody's at in the forest and where we want to go, and then get on a radio and radio down and say, actually, guys, hey, we're going the wrong direction. I want us to pivot left, and then you're going to walk 100 paces and then stop there, and I'll guide you from there. And we have to do this kind of constant pivot and redirection. Otherwise, we start tacking more and more team members and things behind us, and we just end up going in circles. And because everybody's following your lead, they're not going to break that cycle until you break that cycle. So the things we're going to talk about today are the things that cause us to start walking in circles. And they stop us from the ability to get up into that helicopter and pull back and zoom out and realize that this is actually what's happening to us. Okay, we're stuck or we've been stuck and we can't get past this point. And I just feel like we've had 2 or 3 years in a row. It's just kind of the same year. We just keep going in a circle. We can't break past it. And as I do a lot of business consulting and talking with different styles of businesses, these are the 4 themes that I've found are kind of plaguing every business and stops us from moving forward towards the goal, and also takes all of the time, effort, energy, life force out of us as entrepreneurs and business owners and leaders so that we don't have the capacity to pull back and think about what are we doing? Where are we going and how are we going to get there? So let's dive into it, okay? The biggest thing here is most businesses actually aren't broken, right? They're operating and they're going smoothly, mostly, and we've got a system that works, that we've got a team that knows how to work the system that we have, and we're going one direction. But we know that we're not going fast enough. We're not going where we want to be maybe. And if one person from that team quits, retires, moves, is a toxic employee and needs to be fired just from a company culture perspective, we know that that's going to throw the whole system into disarray. We know that maybe the team is scrambling and we're not as quick to our clients as we need to be. And we get this system where the business isn't broken. We wouldn't sit there and say hey, we're not going out of business. We're not failing. We're not going to close up anytime. Things are running smooth. But I also know that it doesn't feel like we have a lot of momentum. All right, and that's what we're going to try to get back today. All right, so biggest thing number one here is moving information between systems. Okay, so I'm going to use the analogy that we had when I was a gym owner. All right, when when we were looking for new leads and new clients, we had Facebook advertising, Instagram. We had Google, SEO, Google My Business Profile, Google Ads, right? I know there's a lot more in there for like lead generation potential, okay? So you've got that's like subset number one to get leads. Once you get a lead, then they go into your CRM. We had UpLaunch, and you have your classic email and email marketing. You've got a Substack, a blog. You've got your general CRM. So for us, I was like UpLaunch, then MindBody, then PushPress, then Go High Level. Then you have maybe quoting software, and you have like another thing that you're going to put them into. And for us, that's like PushPress Core, where they're going to have their plan. They're going to have where this is going to be potentially where you are taking transactions. So you're, bringing dollars and cents and storing payment information. Then you might have project management software. So we went through Slack and Monday and Microsoft Teams and Google Workplace and all of those systems. Every one of these things, guys, is logins, it's time, it's a bunch of subscription costs that continue to go up as more team members grow. It's a lot of moving information, and a lot of it's like the same information across these systems. But what I find with this is, number one, a lot of them don't talk to each other. So we need to build bridges, or even worse, there is a manual team member that has to actually move them from A to B or B to C and through the system. And so then you might have people who are in charge of each little cog or each little step in our machine. Bring that to Joey and bring that to Timmy and bring that to Sarah. And then Sarah is going to take it to, getting them into the system. So we have these little transactional costs, and those costs cost us time, but they also make us have people problems. Because if Sarah, who's in charge of project management, who's the third cog in our machine, Sarah gets pregnant and is going to take a year off, or she's now going to stay home. She's not going to, work anymore, so she's going to quit. Now we have this gap. Our cog, our machine has grinded to a halt, and we've got to hire somebody new to take that role. And now we've got to train them up on all of these different steps and all of this different software. And that is a pain. If you guys have had to do that, or had to do that a bunch, sadly, it is so hard to lose somebody who knows the whole system, who's been native in the whole system, who has all their logins already ready, and they're like good to go. They plug in and they can just execute right away. And then we lose them and we bring somebody in who doesn't know any of it, and we have to train them up on everything. And then it's 6 months to where they're even decent with it. And then maybe a full year before we get back to where we were with Sarah. So now we take this big step back as a business. So we lose transactional costs and time costs by having all of these manual processes in the way. But we also have this really challenging personnel issue because we can't take a lot of steps forward in our business when we lose employees every 6 months, every year, every 2 years. And it takes a year for them to get up to full speed where we can run fast as a business and we can operate smoothly, we can operate well, and everybody's on the same page. What that does cause us too is it also makes us second guess or stop if we have to fire somebody. Let's say you have somebody who's just toxic to your culture and is not doing well, and everybody knows that it's time for that person to move on, and they're all looking to you as the business owner to make that decision. But you're sitting there looking at it just being like, but man, if we lose that person, they're the main person who runs our project management software, and they built that system, and they know it like the back of their hand. And gosh, if we just lose them, we're going to lose. I don't know what we're going to do. We have all these projects in the pipeline, and we're going to have to get in there, and I'm just going to have to get in there and do it manually until we can train somebody up. And if you've done that before, oh my gosh, now you're working weekends. Now you're working longer. Now you've taken on your role, which is the leader and the guider, and you've stepped back into okay, everybody stop. We're not moving forward in the forest anymore. Everybody stop where you are. I've got to go back and I've got to do this manual job, and we're just not going to move forward for a little bit until we can get somebody who can do that job so that I can focus back on guiding the business. So if that resonates with you, this is like number one, all right, is we have to get to a point where we have systems talking to each other and bridges for our communication, for our data, for our information that happen autonomously or happen at the click of a button or happen at light speed, as we can do now with AI. And that's like one of the most important things for us. And next, we need to get to a point where we've got like a central brain system where if we do happen to lose one of those people, the central brain doesn't lose any of its information. So this is like, again, if we're thinking about like we build out these AI agents that can do a lot of this for you, we don't have those major transactional costs of losing employees. All right, next up, we start thinking about building the same quote from scratch every time. And this is when I've been working with both gyms and with, landscapers, construction companies, painters, trying to think real estate agents, right? We think about some of these things where really, for the most part, if we were to break it down, I ask this question in all my onboarding when I'm working with businesses is like, what is your 80%? What does your most typical job look like? And how can we, number one, get more of that business so that we can standardize things a little bit? But number two, like, how can we get to the point where we build a software system or we build an agent system that can understand your independent pricing, quoting, estimating package and be able to like feed it the information and have it spit out things in real time or incredibly fast? Because if we have to, so like if you can think about it as like we're getting trees taken down out of our property. What was their system, right? I filled out a form online. It took them 3 days to get back to me, right? After 3 days, what was their next step? They had to book a time for somebody to come out. That person couldn't come out for a week, okay? So now we're 10 days away from when I filled out the information to when somebody can come out, okay? Then the person comes out, they look around, they look at the trees, the size of the trees, different things like that, and they get me a customized quote, okay? From the time they came out to when I got the quote was 2 days, all right? Then I get the quote. Then we go back and forth like, hey, let's get rid of these trees. Let's skip those ones. I don't need that right now. I send it back. They re-customize the quote. They send me back a final. I check off on it. And then it's 6 weeks for them to get back out here. So from start to finish of the process, it's going to be about 2.5, maybe 3 months. So 10 to 12 weeks. Okay. And again, like this business is a great example because I don't think they're hurting for business. Obviously with the storms and stuff, a lot of downed trees, but 12 weeks from start to finish, and a lot of people in those processes doing things by hand, doing things with their brains, doing things custom. What if I were to take that business, what if we were to say, okay, like red oaks that are more than 50 feet tall, that's this cost, right? Any pine trees that are a medium-sized tree, that's this cost, right? Anything stump grinding is this cost. Removal is this cost. Like, and they just are plugging in numbers, right? Okay, we have 2 red oaks, we have 4 down pine trees. Plug it in, plug it in, plug it in, and then at the end, as they plug in those numbers, it spits out an automated, standardized quote. All right. Now, what you want at that point is like it should be done in almost real time, right, by your AI agent that you feed this information. So we create the agent, we train the agent. Your best estimator is going to train, and work with it, and we're going to test it. But then once it's live, all we're going to do is enter it, get the quote. We're going to add our margin in to make sure that we have a little bit of wiggle room, and then we propose that almost in real time to the client. Then if the client is like, like for me, I was like, okay, those trees in our backyard, that was maybe slightly more expensive. And honestly, that's like not that big of a deal for us. So just go ahead and take that off. You change the 2 to a 0, and that's taken off your quote in real time, right? And it's just updating in real time. Now, as we start to build these out, you can see already that we can move faster. It's almost like the estimator's job, the quoting, the person back at their home base who's the administrator who's sending things out manually, their job's basically done, right? It's done in real time. So when that estimator goes to the next job, it's like that whole box is checked. They can almost sign off in real time. If we could have done that in real time with the estimator who came out to me to talk to me to trees, I would have signed off in real time. That whole process would have been done. They could have moved to scheduling. And then scheduling is like a whole different thing. Like AI with scheduling, finding gaps, finding distances between jobs, all those things. Like it's amazing at those kinds of things, right? So we can take some of those little faults and failures and scheduling problems, and we can just outsource it to something that's way smarter and can use way better data than we can, right? But like that's a decent example of they're building out everything custom every time. We used to do this at Friendship. We used to build out, we would do an assessment with the individual client, and then we would build out a custom onboarding plan for them, and then we'd execute that onboarding plan. What we realized is that like 80% of the people came through and really just needed the same onboarding, right? Now you would have 10% of people who were more fit and 10% of people who were less fit who needed something custom. But we would start with everybody in that initial path. And then once we started going and we learned more about it, we could customize that as we were going. Now, that's not going to be true for every business, but what it helped us with doing is we were able to have a standardized pricing template, a standardized sales process, and a standardized sales number that we could quote to people in real time before they came into our initial sales process. So again, if I called that tree company and they picked up the phone, they were like, "Hey, Jeff, what's going on? What are we working with?" And I'm like, "Yeah, listen, I've got this 150-foot red oak that's leaning after the storm. It's leaning right over our house, and we want to get that down. Most importantly, we've also got like 6 or 7 down pine trees in our ravine that we're looking to get done." You can just really quickly be like, "All right, cool. Here's your general idea. Red oaks, we do $1,000 per 50 foot of tree. So if you have a 150-foot oak, that'd be about $3,000. Pine trees down, depending on their size, we usually look for somewhere around that $500 range for every pine tree. So if you had 10, you'd be looking at somewhere around $5,000. So just to give you like rough ideas, we still want to come out there and look at it, but rough ideas is going to be somewhere around that $8,000 to $10,000 mark. How does that sound? Then I know if it's like, holy crap, that's way out of my ballpark. Like, don't even come out to my house. Save you the time there. But if I'm like, yeah, that's about what I was thinking. That's pretty standard. That sounds good. Why don't you guys come out and look at it and we can move forward? Then I'm also ready for the sale when I come in. And it's like a sales and an estimation in one. So just some ideas of kind of how we can think about templating some of these things. And hopefully that gets you in the mindset of building something more standard, because it's both quotable, it helps your sales process, but it also helps us with speed to quote, and we can get more clients done in a month. All right, third thing. Meetings that only exist to transfer information. Boy, this is a huge one, all right? Again, if we had this idea of a central brain, right, where I was able to upload and disseminate information with my AI agent who remembers everything, and you could send me data and information in an email, in a Slack message, in a text message, and as I get that information in real time, I'm feeding it to my own personal or the business's own independent AI agent that we build, and you're feeding it that information. In real time, it can be shooting out information on a website, on a dashboard, in your Slack channels that's saying, here's our to-do list today. Here's what we have on our docket. Here's updated information from our estimator. Here's updated information from our sales guy. Here's updated information from our administrator. And we're saving meeting time, and we're also getting information out quicker. Things don't have to wait for this. On Monday we have our all hands meeting and we'll put out this information then. So you give time back to your employees. You give time back to yourself. We don't waste all this time in meetings that we know it's like, okay, it takes 5 minutes for everyone to get their cell phone put away and handle their personal shit. Then we bullshit a little bit for a little bit. We're, joking and laughing about this, and we talk about the stuff we got coming up. And 90% of the time that could be an email. 90% of the time that could be a text message or a memo. 90% of the time we could have a dashboard that gets updated in real time by our AI agents to everybody and keeps everybody informed, fully informed all the time. And we can reduce our meeting schedule down to almost nothing because we don't need to share that information. It's already been shared. We don't need to transfer that information. It's already been transferred. Now we're moving faster, right? We have to start thinking about these transactional costs because it's time back for everybody in your business. So that improves employee happiness. That improves your happiness as a business owner. It improves your longevity. It allows you to continue growing and feeling like you're moving forward. And you actually should be able to get more done faster. So this is like these ones are just killing businesses. And when we compound all 4 of these things, this is where we really start to see businesses stuck in the mud, right? Or owners stuck in the mud, all right? So last one, guys, is follow-ups and status updates. So when we kind of start thinking about the follow-ups and status updates with this, guys, this is things that now I would say is just like table stakes for businesses, is having a lot of this stuff automated. If we don't have these things automated, then this is a manual task that you have to hire somebody for. And if we don't have the manual task and we don't have the automation built out, then honestly, like, we're probably losing business. We're losing dollars and cents. So I've already started to work with my businesses on, like, do we create a project dashboard that's client specific? So let's take a tree removal company or a landscaping project, are like great examples of this. Is for every client that comes out, right, we feed the information into this database. We create a new client folder for our AI to handle. The AI learns everything about that client. If it's a landscaping project, where do they live? What's their total project cost? What's the scope of their project? Name, contact information, put all that into our folder. As we get more information from the estimate and the proposal or the bid and everything signed off on, we go ahead and upload all that information. Once the project is signed off on, it populates a website that would be like, let's just say landscaping.com/Binek, right? For the Binek family tree removal project. And it brings up a dashboard. And the first thing on that dashboard is a timeline, right? And it's got sections 1 through 5, right? Like new lead, estimation, blah, blah. And it's got little check blocks. And then it shows me next thing, all right, we're at the last step, which is tree removal, and it's got a date and a time, and it tells me exactly when we're going to be out here. It tells me how long the project's going to take, what's the scope of the project. Underneath that, we have our invoicing and receipt information, and then next to that, we could have like a contact us block so that I could shoot them an updated, information. Hey guys, just a heads up, we're actually going to be out of town in April. It's fine if you guys can still come out. Just wanted to let you know we're not going to be there. Boom, that sends that out to the project manager for our job, or puts it as a little thing, a note on our file, and whoever comes out to do our job isn't surprised that we're not home now. So when we start thinking about building these client dashboards, I think you can do this for almost anything. Like for construction jobs, I think it's really cool to have a timeline. What are we doing this week? What's happening, right? Do we have change orders? Do we have updated things? Actually, I don't like that color. I changed my mind. I want to change the paint color. Change order comment form. As we start thinking about some of these follow-ups and proposals, like I want us to think proactively. What are the problems that we experience with every job that slows us down? How do we get ahead of that and build a system to where we don't get that question, where the person doesn't have to ask, hey guys, you haven't been here in 2 weeks. What's going on? They just go to the dashboard. It lives on the dashboard, right? We don't have to get there and say, hey, what's the status of this? Or as a business owner, if I've got 15, landscaping projects going on at one time, I don't have to sit there and go to my project manager and be like, hey, what's going on with the Binek job? What's going on at the Binek household? They're sending us a bunch of text messages asking us where we are. What's our status update there? And now we've got, again, these transactional costs. We're sharing data and information. We're trying to do it through text message or through email or through Slack message. And it's like time off of everybody's day, when that could all the AI can just be updating the dashboard. And then as things change in the dashboard, all we do is we just type one little command line, or we can even do voice to text from our car to our AI agent and be like, hey, the Binek job is signed off on. Go ahead and move it to the next step, get them scheduled, and put that date on their dashboard, right? Done. So these are things that we can do now that are like, this is the beauty of what AI can do for us as a business. It can cut down on every one of these costs. So what I like to think about is this one brain model. We want to create a native AI system for our business that is this central hub that improves the quality of communication with our customers. It improves the quality of information sharing and communication across our team. It allows us all to get time back. And it really, more importantly, it allows you to get to a point where you can step back and say, I now have the tools that cut down on all of this extra time, effort, energy, transactional costs, employee problems. It can fix so many of these things. So this is kind of how I've started to build these out and how I've started to rethink about how I think about business, how I think about just general flow of information, and how we can use these tools to create something truly unique. And this is what is going to separate businesses in the future. I can guarantee you that this is going to be table stakes in like 3 or 4 years. You're not even going to be able to get to play at the business table if you're not on top of these things. Because the businesses that do these things are going to stand out so far. They're going to look so professional. They're going to be so fast to information to the client. They're going to be so effective that they maybe don't need as much overhead, or they can do more jobs. So if I can do more jobs, maybe I can cut my margin down a little bit, and now I can underbid you. So now I look more professional. I give you better communication. You have a better experience as a client, and I'm cheaper. How is that business going to lose? Right? So again, I think about this as table stakes. I think it's incredibly important. I think we all need to stop and start thinking about this, and we need to get out of the forest walking in circles. We need to stop doing things the way we've always done things, because the tools that are being created now are total game changers for every business, and it's just going to be something that's adopted by everybody in a matter of time. Better to be the first, right? So that's it for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. If you guys are watching on YouTube, trying to do a little more visual today. So again, if you guys like these slides, right? Made by my AI. Told it what I was going to talk about today, and here we go. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Or listening, if you guys are listening to the podcast. Thanks so much. See you.